This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded.
Oh, are we going? Oh, we are recording.
Oh, well, this is going really well.
Fucking hurry up, Mitch.
No, I didn't even realise that the record had begun. Well, listen, it's lucky this whole podcast doesn't go via video format because people would then be able to say that I'm drinking because I've been driven to drink by the selfishness of my podcast co-hosts. Two of them had the cheek to want to talk about themselves for this whole episode, you know? Oh, they go, oh, you had last week. That's you done now, Tom and Celeste. Oh, yes, of course you would say that, wouldn't you? You know? Fucking gaslighting me.
Yes, that is the conceit of the...
Gaslighting me, you know. Oh, you know, you've done... All your worth, Tom and Celeste, can be packaged into those few minutes, and now you're done. Oh, is that it? We never talk again, is it? So no wonder I'm
Pretty
drinking.
much.
Yeah. It's very funny that a minute into the episode on Me and Pingers, Tom has taken up 90% of it.
45 minutes later, he was like, okay, now let's get on to Mitch.
It's a good bit though. So, but no, so this is, as Tom alluded to, this is the second part of a two-part episode where we're talking about ourselves because a lot of you asked who we are and what we do. So go back and listen to that if you want. I'm not your dad. I don't really care if you do or don't. It'd just make more sense. But me, what do I do? What's my thing? I was thinking about this since we had this question come through, and I reckon I can sort of package my whole thing, relevance to the podcast. Like I'm a very multifaceted, very interesting man.
That's what they all say, Mitch.
I'm a gamer. But otherwise, I like the three A's as I've sort of got in my life is activism, entertainment, and academia. And so I've got like these sort of three chunks that I guess like, you know, are relevant to, I guess, activism broadly. And that's what I sort of consider this podcast because it's a fucking lefty podcast where we're talking about that shit because if I didn't, I would feel useless. But I was lucky enough to grow up in a union household. My dad was actually at the Patrick's Wharfie strikes in 1998. And so I was
sick.
One of my favorite and early like childhood memories was being taken down to the picket line. The day after they had rushed a fence and like torn it down. And so a new fence had been sort of put in closer, closer to the road. And for some bureaucratic reason, there was a gate that was still standing, like a big, large, like you could walk under it gate with no fence attached to it. But the scab security guards that were hired, like one of them still was assigned to that gate that now had no fence, where the real fence was like a good 5 meters closer to the road. So the shit that guy was copping from my dad and from everyone else, as he just stood there next to an empty gate with no fence in the middle of nowhere, was like a formative memory of mine. Which I'm just thinking now, kind of also, like, probably is why a yard yelling at racist dogs tickled me when I first saw it. Because it was just Wharfies yelling at this poor security guard, it was an embarrassing situation for him to be in. It wasn't like they had to make anything up. You're a fucking idiot. Why are you standing there? What gate are you guarding, dickhead? It was gorgeous.
That's a very yard situation because it's a turkey shoot thing, and you're kind of capitalizing on it to, you know. I mean, obviously it was a bit early for you to that war front battle was a bit early for you to all have camera phones, but it would have been if you had them, it would have been perfect yards. And 100%.
Fucking great.
And was that kind of one of your formative experiences, like with protest, or had your dad already been bringing you along to rallies and such or union stuff before that?
I was never at meetings. I was never doing stuff like that. But that was my first introduction properly to like, this is what workers do. And so in my mind, it was less even like, oh, this is a radical action. This is what workers do. Workers, you're in unions. And when the bosses try to fuck you, you go down with your mates and you camp out and you struggle to get what you need.
Yeah.
My mum was also a unionist, which was great. I found this story out later, but she was like a retail manager and a regional manager. Like this is the type of woman that she was as well. Retail manager was like, well, we have an after work meeting that has to be called. All the managers are coming in. She's like, well, we're getting paid for it. Yeah. And they're like, no. And she's like, well, yes, we are. And she called the union and got the meeting cancelled. Just gave her regional manager's number to the union rep and was just like, they called them directly and said, you pay them or it's not happening. And they're like, okay. And so like that was just sort of how I lived.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until later how important that was to normalize union activity. Because as a fucking kid, I was like, and I mean like teenager with politics, like I was very much like the socially progressive, fiscal conservative little gronk, like skirting with libertarianism too, and just the worst through high school. And I think what got me through, besides having a very lucky life, being at university a lot, blah, 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 was just that basis of union activity. Or like no matter how far down a libertarian hole I went, I always came back to, oh yeah, but you join your union if you go to work.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was never they were never going to cohere together for very long.
That's
I don't
not popular
think.
with that lot of people.
No,
in fact, it's one of their
not
glaring holes in their purported politics, isn't it? Yeah.
But no, so every workplace I've been to, I have, tried to unionize to more or less a degree. And that's definitely picked up through my 20s.
So you've been a union rep. You've done the delegate work and that kind of thing quite a bit, have you?
Not officially, no.
Oh,
So when I
okay.
say unionize my workplaces, I've always been a go-between between union reps and other people at the workplace. I've talked up the union, just like, clandestine meetings, starting little group chats, getting people on board, getting people to come to you, and like figuring out how to talk to management. Because the thing for me is that I was also always going to sort of protest. I've always been anti-racist to, more or less a degree. And like I said, fiscally conservative, socially progressive. How anti-racist can you be when you're like, I want good things, but I don't want money spent on them? Oh, fucking little turd of a human. But like, I was always like lone wolfing at protests. Like, yeah, I hate Howard or hate Abbott or whatever, but I'm not going to join a group. And it was through union activity, seeing my friends benefit from union, seeing myself benefit. When you feel the power of a union, it's literal. And I don't mean like, because people talk about collective action being this important thing, but I mean like when you feel the power your manager has over you, when you're like being called into a workplace meeting and you might lose your job because it's a performance review and they're trying to cut staff or whatnot, there is a feeling that person has over you. And it's electric when a union rep is next to you and they go, no, we're not doing that. And you go, you can just do that? And I was like, yes, because the power differential is different here. I'm a union rep. You pay me. It's a different. It's so like I said, electrifying and it's genuine and it's real and it's that small level. So I was a very early convert to being loudly pro union all the fucking time to everyone, because it's like you can just have this good feeling, and so that helped me get into sort of collective action. And so, like I said, always been going to like sort of the protests, smaller actions around Brisbane and Melbourne when I was there, that then turned into like properly volunteering for political parties like the Greens, who I also worked for the state Vic Greens for a while as the dreaded staffer. So I've seen the inside of politics. And also
there's a lot to be asked about that, I suppose. I mean, we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
I think it'll inform everything. That's the thing. It informs everything. If we're talking about politics, I've got a small basis in that at the state level of just like Celeste, like you said last week, of like a lot of change happens outside of Parliament. And I think people in Parliament need to be more aware of that, like especially the fucking major parties. But I think everyone.
I think there's a pig ignorance from various different poles of life. Like I've been among activist or participatory spaces as someone who prioritises or is most interested in that kind of direct action stuff myself, or participatory politics, and found an absolute pig ignorance about parliamentary politics or the various lobby politics and all those kinds of things, the politics business that's surrounding it. And even if you ascribe to believing in activist politics as being the most important or the most important to you, if you have an interest in what drives change, will you be better off to not be pig fucking ignorant about Parliament? Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think parliamentary politics has a place. That's the thing. Like, eventually we're not an anarchist society and we're not going to have one. And eventually we're going to have sort of like rules and laws codified and functionaries to sort of maintain them and a bureaucracy to lead and all that sort of stuff. Like government will be here for a while. I just think it should be the last place change should be seen to go to as opposed to come from. Especially because we don't have politicians anymore like, Hawke and Keating, for whatever they were worth, Howard, for whatever he was worth, had ideas for where the country should go, as opposed to politicians now who just sort of go, what do you guys want? Can I get you anything on my way out? Oh, sorry. And they just sort of fuck off. They look at polls and they go, what's popular? What's not? I'm not doing anything that will upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
They're like, Fraser. Who was the guy that was fucking slapped down by the monarchy? I'm forgetting his name right now.
Whitlam.
Yeah. Chocolate guy. It's the, they all had this push to be politicians who would lead, and we don't fucking have that anymore.
Yeah.
So until we get that again, and we will get that by building it outside of Parliament. Anyway, more important than that, genuinely, was the stuff that I did at the Renters and Housing Union. I was there sort of early on, they were going for a few months before I jumped on doing the media stuff with them, and that was fucking great. I remember through the lockdowns just being like, why the fuck are we paying rent in this? Why are we getting fucked on this? The landlord is a problematic middleman that no one needs at the moment. And so that sort of action, working in those groups and also joining some groups and being, I guess, forthright enough to know that I don't have to struggle through groups. I'm kind of glad I didn't get involved in activist spaces around 17, 18, 19, because I may have been stuck in some for way too long with problematic people or problematic systems that didn't work for me, at least, that would have crushed me and just spat me out, and I wouldn't be doing this stuff now. So I think that's also a sort of important thing is sometimes groups just don't work for you, whether that's interpersonally, whether that is systemically, whatever. And there's plenty of shit we all need to be doing that you don't have to struggle through. Life's too short for bad books and bad activist groups. Just fucking go to another one. It's fine.
I've seen people crushed by political parties that they've been staffers for. I've also seen them crushed by activists, toxic, punishment, insanity. Yeah, and there's a lot of that in Melbourne.
One of my favorite things too with Rahu especially was doing rallies for them. It's fucking great because I'll get to the entertainment shit briefly, but that's what I do is just yell. And so yelling to like-minded people with the express idea to get them fired up about politics as opposed to laundering it through comedy or music. Oh, wow. If anyone needs me to speak at a rally, hit me up. Any left-wing cause, I have to be ignorant about it. Give me something to say. I'll just say it really loudly. It's it's the best. And writing media releases. I've been in media, like I sort of said. So the other A in my tripart is entertainment. It's the thing that I do and have done fucking forever. I've been in bands forever. I'm currently in a band. I'm the singer of a band called I Have the Enemy. We're going on tour with Dark Tranquility soon. We have a new EP, Only Equals Negotiate, out now. You can find it wherever streaming services are. You can buy it at Bandcamp.
That was a fucking quick ass.
That was nice.
Spiel,
yeah,
man.
well done.
This is what I do. This is all I do.
That was a
spiel.
This is the thing.
That's a radio man's voice right there.
Well, that's the other thing. So I was a Triple J host for the longest time. So if you ever hear me going, that's the Triple J part coming out again. I did their metal show as a fill-in for a while, but their host Lachlan got brain cancer, which was terrible for him. But for me, I got to host the Racket for I love you, Lachlan. So I got to host a show for a full year, and I was the specialist metal host. And I did some fill-in stuff as well. And that was dream come true shit. I used to listen to Will Anderson and shit in the morning. Love Triple J. Got to do it. And again, politics, when you get to see, entertainment from the inside and it's a job and it's just fucking it's just it can be crushing. But it's still ultimately worth it. What else? I did. I was a comedian for the better part of a decade, both doing stand up and running shows and stuff like that.
You done with that? Do you consider yourself done with that? You know what I mean? Or is it a to be continued? So this is weird too, because what's a comedian? I reckon is someone who does stand up comedy, but comedians are people that do podcasts and they write for television and they do other things. So maybe, but I'm not. And I don't start this podcast going it's got to be the funniest show we can do. Comedy is just something that will sort of come out of the fact that we're all not just smart and good looking, but real fucking funny. So, I mean, maybe. COVID put a stop to me running shows, and I would love to get back to doing that. I had a show called Stand Up Philosophy.
which I got from a friend in Europe, where we just get like, you'd have a theme for the night and you get comedians and academics and philosophers on stage to talk about things. And like,
That's a sick notion.
fuck, the crowds were good.
I like that.
It was so good because the crowds go into it knowing what they're going to do. You don't spring academics on them. Everyone's there going like, some of you are going to be funny and some of you might be interesting. And it's such a cool vibe because comedians got to be, I will bring this show back. Comedians got to be a bit more introspective. They didn't have to go in with like, oh, don't worry about what I just said though. I'm being ironic. They could just say shit.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
I've never liked. I feel like pigs in a fucking trough going to like a stand-up comedy club. And shout out to my many friends who do stand-up comedy. It's not like, but I also, as regards doing it, I never had the chops. I used to do spoken word stuff, and I think I used to make people laugh most of the time when I did that. But I didn't want the whole point of it to be that. But like, I would always get a really uncomfortable vibe, even just as a punter going to a comedy club, because I was just like I say, pigs in a trough, like, go and make me laugh. I want to go
fucking love it
with my mouth. You know what I mean? Like, it leads to people being pretty horrible, you know?
Love it. But also, like, when someone's dying on stage, it's some of the funniest shit. It's real good. I've died on stage and it's been funny. Yeah. And so, like, you know, it's fair game. That's what you go for. But fuck, it's good sometimes when someone's just dying in the ass and they can't pull it out. And there's usually like the 4 or 5 comedians up the back that you can hear laughing while everyone else is like, oh, is this sad? Is this an intervention? But so I think part of like what's helped me with entertainment and through the activism shit is that a thing that I have learned and then been able to internalize, again, especially being around like elected politicians, is that if someone is able to speak authoritatively or forcefully on something, they can convince you that they're good at anything else or that they know what they're talking about. So a handy hint, which maybe I shouldn't reveal as you're listening to a podcast, but if you're listening to someone who sounds authoritative on things, like, take it with a grain of salt, especially if they're a politician. The only thing politicians are good at is making you vote for them. You like most of the time, people don't have portfolios that cohere with a past career that they've had. People always change fucking portfolios.
They're not dreaming of getting into the position they got through.
No.
With regard to portfolios.
Why is treasurer a portfolio that people like want to get to because it's seen as like a good step for their career? If you're not a fucking money man, if you didn't know anything about that, why are you the fucking treasurer? Oh, because it gets me closer to being prime minister. It's like, oh, so it's all bullshit. Like, so like there's shit in all these different, and every party, this is not just like Labor or Liberal, this is every party, have portfolios that they see as less important. And it's bullshit. Like, you should be going there doing the thing that you're passionate about. And if you're only passionate about power, quote unquote, or being elected or like making change, but it's not specific and it's not driven, then I don't want you in the way because you're a liability. You are there accruing power as opposed to using power. And that's always a fucking risk. But hopefully these 2 episodes can give people some idea of when we're speaking about things, what they can go, oh yeah, they're an authority on this thing, and what things they can go, shut the fuck up, Mitch. What are you talking about sport for? Why are you trying to appeal to the everyman? You have soft hands, Mitch. Shut the fuck up.
Well, we can explore matters. I think I was touching on some of this last week. We can explore matters, and you can, in an unvarnished way, just ask me dumb questions, like, because you're not pretending to be interested in the niche.
Tom, wasn't Hitler a socialist?
You can ask that. You can stuff like it. You can ask that. You know, you can. Like, it's a good climate, you know what I mean? And we don't have to pretend that we're each other's fucking expert, you know? But you're a political, so you're a person with a bulk of political experience and a belief in that system. And yet here you are in a podcast with perhaps the majority of others, and maybe even yourself to a degree. I know you're conflicted on it, who don't really like, you know, have varying degrees of unfaith in the parliamentary system, you know what I mean? Whether it just be like specifically right now or broadly in general. Like, do you see us as having battles on that front? Because I don't mind. I mean, if we're going to have arguments, or what did you imagine with this pod?
So, like I said, I worked for Vic Greens as a staffer for a bit. I was also a volunteer on a lot of different elections for them, local, state, federal, for a while, and had been involved in all the different meetings and strategy and stuff like that. And so have seen different facets of Australian politics, and also have friends in federal politics, state politics as well. And so I have seen that sort of stuff. And when you say, like, do I have faith in the political project or like politics with a capital P, electoralism? It's hard to say because like I have my own faith in the system, being that I think there will be a government that administers things to a population for the foreseeable future. But in the current state, the fucking faith that Albo wants me to have in his fucking government, no. No, it's dog shit. The one I always come back to is Malcolm Turnbull and the Liberal government gave us marriage equality. If you subscribe to the idea that politics is where change happens, is where our current leaders are, and it's where cultural change ferments and then goes out to the population as a germination, as a starting point, you have to admit that the Liberal Party gave us marriage equality. That's obviously bullshit. It was decades of activist work outside of Parliament making sure that the issue could not be ignored and that our Conservative government had to, kicking and screaming, dragged into a marriage equality fucking plebiscite male bullshit that they eventually couldn't ignore. And I will add, without any help from the fucking Labor Party, who also didn't want to make it a political issue. So I don't have faith in them.
Yeah, the global consensus moved there, and it was a lot of tireless, hardworking, queer people who did that over a long time. Yeah.
And so in terms of voting and who we vote for, why we vote, one of my favorite heuristics I've ever heard came from Tom McLean, who was a host of my last podcast, Not Good Enough, because I'm, like I said, entertainment, little podcast hoglet, yum, 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 yum. But his idea was that you vote for the people who will be easiest to bully. And I fucking love that because you should always be suspicious of those that hold power. You should always be suspicious of people who can make laws and who can administer, they have their hands on the levers of power in almost a literal sense, right? That's where that's where power is wielded. If we have a Greens majority government, then people like us can very easily bully those people into doing things. We'll go, hey, you should do this thing. And they'll go, all right. And we go, oh, fuck, that was easy. And when it's Liberal and One Nation and whatnot, then it's even harder to bully them into doing what we need to do. But it touches on that idea that, make politicians afraid again. Politicians work for us and they should remember that, all that sort of stuff. I think you should vote for the people who, espouse your views and say that they want to give you the things that they, align with your interests and your ideology. But at the end of the day, if the Greens majority, if it was a Greens Victorian Socialist government and they remained unchecked, I reckon they'd go fucked pretty quick. Because you've got so many competing interests all the time. No one is immune to that. You can look at the German Greens and different other Greens parties that have some amount of power where eventually corporate interest comes in. And because they're so sheltered from the general population, the voting population, they start to lose their ideology. They start to think, well, this is the way things work. We have to play this game. We're here now. We have to play. We'll win the next election, but we still have to play it to that point. So, no, fuck you. You will be bullied by me. And thank you for your service of being bullied. I appreciate it.
I agree. I think those different poles of power need to be there as an act of accountability in a society like this. Like I think it needs to be a healthy pole of activist power, definitely a healthy pole of unionist power.
It's what the Labor Party used to be.
Yeah.
The Labor Party used to be I said it before, the functionary of the Labor movement in politics. And now they're absolutely fucking not. Like, look what they did to the CFMEU. That's not a power base there. The CFMEU have lost the ability to bully Labor. And we now talk about it as if it would be very dreadful if the unions bullied Labor. Bullshit. The big businesses bully the Liberal Party all the time. It doesn't take much. Yeah. But they go, can you fucking stop that? Can you deregulate that? Oh, sorry. Yep. No, my bad. That's how it works.
What is a lobbyist, mate? It's a fucking, unionist for those in power,
It's a money bully. Basically, because we saw what happened with Kevin Rudd and the mining corporation. They bullied him basically out of power. But it was bullying. That's how we have to think of it. We need to bring back shame. We need to bring back bullying. And that's my professional ethical declaration as a philosopher, as an ethicist. Because the third part, which I'll blow through here, my 3 A's, it's activism, entertainment, and academia. Like you, Celeste, I've been at uni fucking forever. I am by training and insufferably so a philosopher, I guess. I work at universities teaching philosophy. I have a master's in it. I'm doing a PhD. Like, I'm that guy. But I mention that specifically because when you're at university, and especially if you do like postgraduate stuff, you teach at university. And so I teach in philosophy and the arts, which also means I understand I'm using the word insufferably deliberately, but I do have a broad base of arts knowledge to an undergraduate degree because I've taught university classes for fucking years now, right? So like I do have some amount of knowledge on like disability advocacy, because for a few years I taught disability and human rights at an undergrad level, like it was a second year unit or whatever. So I've been fucking lucky enough to have this life where my job has been to basically take undergraduate courses and then teach them to kids who don't know anything about it. And as you know, like teaching something to someone is the best way to learn it yourself. So I've had this amazing life where I can have a broad base of like theoretical knowledge on shit I'm interested in. And also because I was doing undergraduate studies for so long, like I also had a lot of time to just read theory. Like I'm still in some sense a Georgist. And if you don't know what a Georgist is, of course not. It's a very niche economic idea that hasn't been in favor for nearly 100 fucking years.
Mitch. Not
it's
niche
not,
enough.
but you know what I mean? But like that sort of shit is what I've been lucky enough to have the time and capabilities to just read theory and understand shit. And then through entertainment, learn how to hopefully synthesize it into something that people can get passionate about. They can at least hear someone yelling about it.
And Mitch, all that academic knowledge that you've accrued over the years, I suppose that makes you think that you're better than me.
Yes, 100%.
That's how it works generally, yeah.
So that's the last bit as well, is the hierarchy of this pod needs to be established. So there's...
You think you're top shit. You think your shit doesn't stink, mate. I'm going to bring an anti-intellectualist chip on my shoulder to the podcast. You know, you fucking degrees. I went to the school of life, mate.
You can try, good sir, but your arguments are faulty. So basically, the hierarchy of this podcast, I thought about this a lot before we sort of started, how I would rank everyone. So at the bottom, we've got Taniki for obvious reasons. And then just above...
Down in the ground, the grassroots, the earth, the soil, you know, the common man. Yeah, come on.
In the mud. You mentioned comedy rooms being also like pigs to a trough. It's because that's where your mind is, sir. But then just above him, I'm going to rank everyone. I'm going to be fair. Just above him is myself and Pingers and Celeste. And that's how I sort of conceive of the podcast.
Two-tier system. Well, you know.
No, I love you.
Enjoy it up there on Mount Olympus, my friends, you know.
But so this is the one other thing I wanted to sort of say. I said like, politicians are just people who can convince you to vote for them. They're usually just good speakers, and that's why they sound like they actually know what they're fucking talking about. Like, I got the industrial relations portfolio. Because you're in industrial relations? No, because I speak good in Parliament. Dan Andrews awarded me. Nah. But when it comes to academia as well, there is... I mean, the anti-intellectual bent has taken flight with the right-wing groups. There is a role for experts, absolutely. But I think we do need to remember that people from academia... experts in general, they're not necessarily smart, let alone wise. A PhD is just you being able to concentrate on one very specific topic for a while and go in depth. It doesn't mean you are smart when it comes to putting together different types of, causal relations and ethical considerations. I mean, it does for me because I did philosophy, but everyone else is what I'm saying. I'm actually quite moral. But it's like... The idea that these experts can be experts on anything is why we have fucking Jordan Peterson, who was a very specific type of psychologist who now spouts off on geopolitics. And she's like, shut the fuck up. We shouldn't respect that.
Yeah, and all the reportage about him before he became who he was that he would like to, during his lectures, pontificate about everything. You know, this is what his old students used to report with him. And it's, there's nothing more dangerous, I think, in this world, and I do mean this world right now, because some of these people are about to rule a lot of the free world, quote unquote. It's people who just lack any imposter syndrome whatsoever. They don't have any of that sense of self-doubt, that healthy self-doubt.
Needs some humility.
Yeah, you do. You do. I mean, you specifically do, Mitch, you egomaniac, ivory tower type.
No, one of my favorite things about universities and that environment is that it actually is the knowledge industry. And when you're in a position of teaching, you're in a position of learning, you're in a position of knowledge exchange and building. Yeah. And with this whole anti-intellectualism bent that the right wing keeps hanging on, but also also uses and gains traction with certain pockets of the left, you know, in order to discredit progressive thought in particular. They just miss the fact that actually exchanging and building knowledge bases and sharing them is an incredible thing. It's something that, you know, it's vibrant, it's powerful. That's why I keep going back to uni.
It's the best. Like I love it. Like I said, like I know how privileged my life is. I know how lucky I am to have done all of this stuff. And I understand as well that I'm not in a normal position, and not a lot of people either want to do what I've done or could have like the capacity to do it. So I always feel like if I'm not doing the most that I can do with these, you know, 3 parts of my life that have all sort of come together, then I'm wasting it. Like a lot of people fucking hate public speaking or talking. They don't feel confident doing it. This is one thing I can fucking do. My main thing to sum up all of it is like words and talking. That's what I can fucking do all day, every day. And it has a role. It's not the most important thing, but it is in some ways an important thing to do. So I'm so grateful that I get to do it so often. And now that I get to do it with you three, it's fucking cool.
It is pretty cool.
It's a fun little thing.
Pretty cool. And you know what? Kudos to you, because you were the organising mastermind behind the fact that we're all together. It wouldn't fundamentally have happened without your.
Well, this I'll say is that one more thing as well. There's only so many ways everyone can say it, but it's been said forever. But just be the person that does shit always. There's always have you thought about running for politics? Someone has to, but it really literally is that. Just fucking start. Just do it. Just send a message. One thing I've found that's worked really well for me: type out a message to someone for a project, for anything, for volunteering, for work, whatever. Look at it, leave it for a minute or two, go back to it, and then before you can think about it, hit send. Like the consequences are never as bad as you think they're going to be. But fucking just do stuff.
Do the thing.
But yeah, no, I'm very happy you guys all got on board pretty quick with this dumb idea I had for another fucking podcast. It's sick, but
this is a great idea.
Hey, thanks.
I have a question for you, Mitch. 25 words or less. What's your politics?
It's communism, and then there's a semicolon after it for the 24 other words. Like basically that communism in lieu of a better idea. I feel like nothing has yet gotten past the sort of Marx and Engels almost equation that the system that we have will lead through socialism to communism. And there's no point sort of like sitting on socialism to then go, oh, well, this is good now. We'll just sort of sit here. Because it's like we're seeing what happens with neoliberal capitalism and the march to authoritarianism. The idea of conservatism being a stagnation isn't correct. It's a slippage. And so I think if we're going towards socialism, we can't just stop there. We will either backslide into a neoliberal capitalist framework, or at least a capitalist framework, and then not fall into communism. But so I'm not also one to sort of say that that's inevitable. And I think that's been enough of a sort of theory amongst Marxist scholars as well, where as an inversion of that, you know, what do you think of democracy? What the democracy is the not good, but it's the best we've tried, or whatever that quote is. I feel like communism is at the moment the inevitable outcome, oppositional to a type of fascism. However, there could be plenty of other ways we can organize society that might be fantastic. I mean, anarchism is one other way, but I think that a worker-led, worker-minded body politic at a nation level is maybe the best way to organize society, at least at the moment. I'm very open to tinkering with it as well, because I'm not someone who just sort of thinks we have to follow this formula that was set down in the 1800s and we can't deviate from it. Of course we fucking can. We've got, like, Lenin didn't have a fucking iPhone, and imagine the thirst traps if he did. That's my politics.
That'd be phenomenal. I remember the first time I met you, I think you said that you just finished working for the Greens or something like that, or you'd left, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember that in my experience, if someone was ex-Greens, they were either one of 3 things, and that was either a sex pest, a TERF, particularly in Victoria, or too radical for the Greens. So I was like, it's got to be one of these three. And I think, and the reason for my initial question was I should have asked this question at the outset, but you already kind of came out when we first met about the whole politics equation. I was like, this is a too radical for the Greens kind of guy, not a sex pest / turf.
That's really funny. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying there. That's so true.
It's something I think, especially like Celeste with your fucking like we know they like Victorian, more or less all of us for some period of time, and if you're in any way affiliated with the Greens, like there has been some fucking problems, and they have been handled sometimes better, sometimes worse, and that is something that the Greens are continuing to fucking work on. But good fucking God, has it needed to be worked on? Jordan / Purple Pingers. Who are you? Where do you come from? What are you doing here?
That's me. I just watched a video from by Drew Pavlu about me again today. So
it's good to hone in your ideas on who you are through the lens of what Drew has to say.
Exactly. So that's lovely. He said in literally the same breath, how because he's such a fan of liberal democracy, I and Victorian Socialists should be banned as a political party by the AEC. But he did also talk about my history. So I'll just paraphrase Drew.
Yeah.
Apartheid loving rich white South African, according to Drew. But that is
so. Pingers, when I first met you and I found out you were a white South African, there were 3 different people I thought you could be. It's a sex pest, or too.
That's funny.
I love it. It's true though.
How does he? My question about Drew is like, while he's recording videos about you, how does he manage to tweet at that time? Because he always has to be tweeting. So, like, does he auto schedule them to come out at that time? There are platforms through which you can do that. You know, like you just because you understand the logic of this world is he always have to be posting every fucking minute.
Maybe Drew's just total AI.
He hasn't been. Drew replacement theory. Let's start the conspiracy.
Pingers, have you ever noticed that if he posts something about you and it doesn't get enough traction, he deletes it and he posts it again and again and again because he's waiting for it
10
to
times
catch the algorithm. And you're sitting there, you're like, I can see you doing that.
I'm watching this happen.
Attention craving little shit. Like it's just, oh man.
I will say though, he does have some modicum of online clout. It's not translated into any real world action, but maybe we should be doing that with the clips that we post because you see it, but clearly no one else does because everyone sees it for the first time. That's a thanks Drew for the marketing tip.
Yeah, cheers. So we'll just fling shit at the wall and see what sticks.
No, we'll fling shit at the wall, and if it doesn't stick, we'll fling it again. We'll just keep flinging the same
scraping
shit
it back
over and over. Going back up and touching it with our hands again to take it off the wall. Why won't you stick? Anyway, fuck Drew. Pingers, this is about you.
Indeed, as usual. I would love it to be about me. So I am South African. Moved here when I was 6 years old in the year 2001, I want to say. So for those paying close attention at home, that is well after Nelson Mandela was released from prison, so we weren't part of the white flight to the next most racist country at the time, which was this country. Still is, I reckon. But anyways, we can discuss that later.
Yeah, I don't think any white Australian is in a particularly good position. Something about pots and kettles and black.
Yeah, there's something there, right?
Yeah, there's something in that as regards white South Africans. Anyway.
I'm going to say nothing about white Australians.
It's just for the best sometimes. Moved here when I was 6, had my silly little accent and everything. And then, I don't know what happened. I went to bunch of schools, including some very wealthy private schools, and then met a bunch of people there that I didn't like, and then I think like when I lived in South Africa, I was radicalized by looking at my friends, and not necessarily my friends, just people around me who were struggling so much, and I just didn't have any of that struggle. Like I always fed and clothed and always had shelter and all that kind of thing. But there were just so many people around me through no fault of their own that just didn't have any of those things. And that I realize now that that's just always pissed me off. So yeah. And then, you know, coming to this country where I saw, at least personally, a lot less of that. And then, you know, went to a private school, 2 private schools. That was like, oh, perhaps it's just better here because I can't see it. It's not at my doorstep whenever I leave the house and stuff like that. And then, went to uni, and then most of my friends were not from, you know, the North Shore of Sydney. They were from Sydney's western suburbs and stuff. And then it's like, boom, no, we're still on, baby. Shit's still fucked here too. And then, so I always wanted to be a lawyer when I was at school because I wanted to, you know, help people and do that kind of liberal.
I had that, yeah.
It's like I can do good things and stuff. And then finish my law degree. Or like just before I finished, I worked in Dubai for 6 months at some law firms over there. Saw some actual slavery, which was not very nice to see.
I was about to say, working in a law firm in Dubai is like signing up the slavery paperwork.
Yeah,
that's just fucking intense, dude.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was actually, I was like, because I did law and global studies. I did a dual degree. So then as part of my global studies degree, I worked, interned in Dubai. I was like, this is a trade hub for the world, and like they do international law here and stuff, and I want to do international law. And it's like, then you get there and it's like, this is fucked even way worse kind of thing.
Were you seeing sort of like servants to people who were basically in indentured servitude kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, everywhere. Like the people would go and sweep the streets and stuff, and like literal slaves that had, they come over and then they take their passports, and they keep them they send them like right down the back kind of thing of Dubai, and then just have them like do these incredibly menial tasks with like don't even clothe them and shit like that. It is wild. And then like things like, so in Dubai, if it gets over 50 degrees, you can't work outside. That's the law. And then just every single day, I remember during summer, it was just always 49 degrees on Google. Just always, it was just
fucking hell.
Never 50 degrees. So it's like,
Are you kidding?
It was wild.
Fuck.
And so that made me angry again. And then after that, I worked for the government, became a public servant. I worked for the National Redress Scheme for Institutional Child Sex Abuse, and read about a lot of child sex abuse. And
I'm getting the sense that you couldn't have not ended up radicalized.
No, I just
like the shit that you just keep doing and seeing. Like,
I accidentally did a lot of things that opened my eyes, I reckon. And that was the thing that kind of like just threw everything out of the window for me, because I was just so angry at like so many things. And then I wanted to do something about it. And that's when I started Shit Rentals. And the story that I tell, which is not just a story, this is actually the truth. I say that, I was really mad at pedophiles, and I wanted to, vent my anger, and I couldn't talk about pedophiles because I'd get in trouble at work and lose my security clearance and all that kind of stuff. So I went to the next closest thing to a pedophile, which was a real estate agent. And I stand by that to this day. And then, now we're here.
Oh, man.
And I talk shit about real estate agents.
I wonder why these real estate agents don't like you so much,
But no, I don't. So I'm gonna say, like, it's not the Seinfeld yada 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 on that one bit, because like, because I was gonna ask, like, why rental, like, why was that the focus, and you've sort of mentioned that because like they're evil. But so in terms of like how you decided to start, what were your ideas when you first started Shit Rentals? And like, what were you thinking like it could get to or what you could do with it? But also specifically, like when you then targeted real estate agents and landlords, how did you decide on targeting them the way that you did?
Yeah. So like there was a bit of a strategy behind it. It wasn't just like I'm a bit angry. Like at first, actually, the first couple of videos, that was just completely like not strategic. I was just like, real estate agents are shit, and it's kind of funny to say that they're shit, and so I'm going to do that a little bit. But then, like by that point, I had kind of progressed my politics a little bit into being like, actually, you know, I'm a dirty communist, and this is what I reckon, and this is what I think the theory behind how we actually get change is, and that's, you know, we can talk about that later. But so yeah, what I did was like, I'm just going to talk about this. And like, if like at that point it had gotten attention and stuff like that. So other people started talking about it, and people started sharing their own stories and things like that, but nowhere near like enough people as theoretically should have been, just based on how bad the rental crisis was and stuff like that. And that made me realize, like, you know, there's this threat that people can't share their story. So what I want to do to encourage everyone to share their stories is I'm going to, you know, set up a platform for people to do that anonymously. And then once they did that, I was going to hit them with the, hey, you accidentally did collective action. That's one of the aspects of socialism. I'm a socialist, by the way. Hit him with that like a year ago or whatever. And then now we're at the strategy stage of, you know, I reckon you should all be socialists. So that bit's going a little bit less successfully than the other parts. But yeah, it's definitely worked to an extent. Like a lot of people, like a lot of the feedback has been like, oh, I wouldn't say I'm a socialist, but I really like the things that you do and that you stand for, like the union stuff. And like
You've still planted a seed. You've still planted a seed. I really believe that. Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon there's something, like something's happened. So like,
you've done a lot of good work, man. You really have.
Thanks, man.
You've heard that a lot, I'm sure, but yeah, you really have.
I genuinely believe that the push in this country to have renters recognized as a class, it's been a collective action for sure, right? Rahu have had a huge part in that. Secure in Queensland. I also want to shout as well. I forgot to mention them. Secure have the best acronym I've ever heard. The Southeast Queensland Union of Renters spells secure. Oh, fucking
so good.
So good. And they're staunch as fuck, right? But there is a video of Max Chandler Mather talking about how the Greens can get minority government in 18 years, and he posted it a year before he was elected. And it's genuinely terrifying how prescient he was and how correct he was in his political analysis and the power base he's managed to build that he said he was going to do. But I do think there has been a slight tweak to a bigger focus on renting than even he was expecting. And I think as one of the people who has been very visible and vocal and fearless on that, willing to get on the fucking project and whatnot, I feel like you have played a part in that pivot. For sure.
Huge part, man. Oh my God, the amount of fucking normies who've talked like I just heard coming up with like talking about you and the things I know they've heard them from you. I think you hear a lot of people that talk about things, you know where they got them from. They just don't necessarily attribute them. But I know that you have influenced a lot of. Yeah, you know, I'm not disparaging people by calling them normies. I mean, just generally speaking, quite the centrist, middle of the road stuff, and influenced in what I would think are some very left activist, you know, directions by virtue of, and you have a very can-do attitude. You're out there on the fucking street a lot, you know, and that's very evident through a cursory search of your social media, and you seem to have inspired. You could speak to that, I'm sure. Do you feel that you've inspired a lot of other people? Have you encountered through your actions, your forays into meat space, IRLs, have you motivated a lot of new people? Not dyed in the wool fucking lefty punishers. new people to get out and do real life things?
Yeah, well, like, firstly, just want to say thanks for blowing all the smoke up my ass. It actually was really nice. That like, it was really nice to hear that. But I remember, like, one time I was out. It was Sam Wallman's birthday party, and we went to a bar, and quite a few people came up and was like, well, they were like, "Love your work," finger guns, and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a comment. One of the people that I was with was like, normies are coming up to you and saying, like, this kind of thing. That's crazy, because we look a certain way, we look weird, we look like lefties, but the people that are saying this to you look differently to us.
Yeah, that's when you know you're doing
noticeable.
Yeah.
That happened when we all went to a cafe together a couple of weeks ago.
Did, actually.
And someone, as someone was leaving, they went, "Pingers, love your work." Like, you see, and this is why, you know, the entertainment bit is like, I don't think it's the most important thing, but fucking it's important, because you get the right ideas into the right minds the right way, and it builds something. Like, this is why politicians are in this business, doing what you've been doing.
Are you regarding the political campaign? I mean, you know, and this may be sort of public-private, like stuff that you just want to focus on the energy of the campaign and fucking, you know what I mean, invest yourself in it and see how it goes. Are you regarding it as another, like, you know, another step in the road towards propagating your politics, having people understand where you're coming from, like, successful or not? Because as you say, you know, you are a popular person and you have a popular political platform, and you're very well supported by the socialists, and you may well win. But are you regarding it, win or no, as just being another step, you know, another sort of paver on the road towards propagating your politics? Or because this was never the culmination, the desired culmination of your political agenda was never like, oh, well, this all culminates in me doing a run for politics. So
absolutely,
no.
Yeah, fuck that, absolutely not. Like, no, that's like, I don't want to be like a senator or anything. Like, I think if it happened, that'd be very funny, and I would take the piss like quite regularly.
Ricky Muir, welcome back.
I'd love to see you in there. I think you'd be very, very droll and very funny in there.
It'd be great. It'd just be fun. It'd just be like, but like, no, I don't even think change comes from politics. I don't think we vote for you know, any structural change. That's not how it works. We do that on the street. We do that together. And we do that through class struggle. So like, obviously, it's a little bit easier if we had a political party on our side helping us do that. But like, no, the change isn't made in the halls of power for working people. That's just not how it works. So, like, that's just something I'm doing, alongside the, you know, community organizing. And that's the more important part for me. Yeah, and the podcast, obviously. That's the most important.
Would you have, and this goes to the rest of the Victorian Socialist, you know, sort of like party organisation, would you be amenable to small kickbacks to your co-hosts in exchange for us, you know, like helping promote you? Because I'll put my PayPal into the group chat, you know.
No, so this
is
an important thing. Victorian Socialists do have as part of their platform that their like elected members will give up some of their like their income as their business.
More than half.
More than half to whatever like charities and groups. So all we need to do is register as a charity, right? And then we can funnel. If we get the Patreon set up, we'll just have Mr. P donating. Everyone's giving $2, $5 a month, and then there's one account with like $37,000 a month. What's the go there? Don't know. We're not a political party, so we don't have disclosure laws.
Shadowy finance.
I can tell you right now that if I got elected, I would be getting paid the same as a nurse in Victoria, but Rahu would be fucking rolling in it.
Rahu have a BMW fleet all of a sudden.
Absolutely, because that's absolutely who I'd be donating to.
I have a question for you. Were you involved heavily in participatory, collectivist, and on the street activism and organising before your tilt to pedophiles? Sorry, landlords. And getting confused. And Or was it like, is this also been like your, like something that you've wanted to do, but this has been like the launching pad to actually just get on the street? Because like Tom said, you're fucking out a lot. You aren't just chasing clout. You're not just doing your funny little vids and your little podcast. You are genuinely, talking the talk, walking the walk. So how did that aspect of it come about for you?
So I want to say no, but I was, but in a liberal sense prior to this. So, I was raised in the church and all that kind of thing, in the church band and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I was out doing white liberal charity stuff quite often. Like I was going out, doing we're feeding the homeless today. I went to the Philippines and I did that white person mission trip and built some toilets over there. I did do that stuff, but it's not anywhere remotely the same. But I was outside.
It counts though. It surely had enough of an effect that like people who don't do any of that have no idea what it feels like to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's from a different like political stance or slant or whatever. Yeah, it is a bit different.
I started ruminating in my head quite quietly. This thought that just keeps coming back to me, because your reasons for running in Parliament, or at least what would drive you, are quite similar to why it was that I ran, which is, being there. And what you were saying earlier, actually, Mitch, with regards to this is the system, we're not achieving the revolution anytime soon. So there is actually a pragmatic basis to it. And it is about, trying to leverage the bad system as it is in some way that we can, at this point in time, just to get people a little bit more empowered in their own votes, and therefore when they're doing their democratic duty, they can actually go, oh, hang on a sec, here's something that could shift stuff ever so slightly. That was something that jumped out at me from what you were talking about with your own tilt and a commonality, I guess. And as well as what you were saying earlier, Mitch, it's weird how we just keep coming back to that, because it's one of my long-term sort of takes on Parliament is that anyone wants to be a politician shouldn't be a politician. That's just so, yeah.
I was going to say, like, the way you were describing it, Ping, is of like that you don't really want to go there, and it would be funny, but fucking we don't do it, and we get change outside of it. That's unfortunately the exact type of people we do want to have in there and win. People that are sociopaths or narcissists that want to go in there because they feel they deserve it, that feel they are born to rule. Obviously, we don't want that. But I also am at a radical point now where I feel like people who champion electoral politics as the be-all and end-all, that the only time we actually need to engage in politics is the election campaign, and then we either enjoy the fruits of our labour because, no pun intended, Labor win, or we just have to lump it like, love him or hate him. Scott Morrison is our prime minister, so we just have to we have to suck it up and deal with it. And it's like, no, we fucking don't actually. Change has never come from people fucking dealing with it. Listen to yourself. And the people that I want in my parliament are people looking around going, what the fuck is this? This is fucked. None of this works. This is insane. And again, I always come back to Ricky Muir. Just looking at like, these people are evil. They skewered me on these things that I feel like I am trapped in. The amount of money here is ridiculous. The amount of hard drugs and sex that happen there are off the charts. This place is a den of inequity and salaciousness. This is a modern day Sodom. I want people like that. I don't want people being like, yes, and it suits me perfectly. It's like, oh, you're horrible. You're not good for the rest of us.
I want to be there. Like that's the
I want to go to Canberra.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly. Because those people know exactly what it's like, and they're like, yeah, that's me. I belong there. Like, what the fuck? Who? Ew.
Hey, thanks for listening to this two-parter of the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. Like I said, this was the most requested question that we got. It's like, who are you guys? What do you all do? But if you have some other questions, if you have some clarifications for us, if we got anything wrong, which I doubt, But if we did, or any comments, any cool actions that are coming up, any sort of protests or strikes or anything we need to know about, shoot us an email, alpdotgov@proton.me. That's proton.me. We'll start reading them out on the show. From next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. And coming up in this year, we're going to have some cool guests coming on. It's going to be a lovely time. And if you've checked us out, you like it, just share us. Tell other people about what we're doing and get them along. I have a good feeling about this next year.